Hey y'all, this is my recipe for Guinness beef stew. I hope you enjoy. Okay, here's the ingredients I used. I used dried parsley flakes. You can always use fresh parsley. I have the beef chuck, beef broth, yellow potatoes, even though the recipe calls for Yukon potatoes, our onions, our celery, and carrots, and garlic. You can always chop it up fresh. I'm lazy, so I get it pre-chopped, and yes, I canceled Goya, so just letting you know. And then I have flour, thyme, salt and pepper, and brown sugar. And then we have our lovely Guinness stout, the star, and then our canola oil and tomato paste. Hey y'all, right now I'm just cutting up the meat. I'm making it only about like an inch thick. You don't want nothing too big. Honestly, if you were slow cooking it, it would probably want the big chunks, but I like cutting it up a little bit more. That is gross looking blood on that cutting board. This is why I cut meat with gloves. Taking off the fatty parts. I don't like them. Some people do. Oh, and Nana's in the reflection. Hey, yeah. Hey there, Nana. My cat, sorry. But yeah, I used 2 packs of meat, about 1.5 pounds. The recipe calls for 3 pounds. And remember to heavily salt and pepper your beef. And then here I just thoroughly wash the yellow potatoes with a scrub brush, and then I'm cutting them into huge chunks. Okay, I'm about to rip open this onion. I don't know why I opened it like this. It's more messy this way. A cleaner way to do it is to take your onion, cut off the butts, like so, while it still has the skin on it, and then just peel it. You know, it comes off a lot easier than what I just did. But yeah. Then you want big, chunky pieces. Ooh, and pro tip that actually works. That is a wet paper towel right next to me, and when you're cutting onions, it like prevents tears. It definitely does. It works for me, so I'm hoping it could work for you. Okay, now it's time for the celery. My celery isn't actually that great here. It's not so fresh, so I'm just cutting off the ends, you know, clean them, of course. But you cut off the ends and then just big chunks again. Chunky, chunky pieces. I like them big. I like them chunky. Same with the carrots. Big, chunky pieces. When you're handling fresh garlic, just remember, press, and the skin comes off easy. And of course, I am saving myself time and garlic fingers by just using pre-chopped garlic. Up to you. I'm turning up the heat. Yep. And then we gotta add some oil. I'm just using a capful. Capful and a half. And you can always use bacon instead. Just chop it up and put it in. If you don't want to use the oil, you can use the bacon oil. So yeah, I'm waiting to see if the oil is hot enough. So just take a little piece and test it. If that's bubbling, it's ready. When you first put in the meat, just let it cook. I would say for about a good 6 to 8 minutes before you want to go ahead and flip it. So yeah, I'm just loosening it up from the bottom so it doesn't get burnt at the bottom. Let's check on our meat. We want to make sure that it is cooked at least halfway through before we give its first turn. And it's a little bit too pink, so not ready. Some time has passed, and I'm just checking on the meat again. And it looks like if it's cooked a little bit more than half. So that's good. Now I think it's ready to be flipped. Flippity flip, flip, flip. Flip, 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 flip. Flip that meat. Make sure it's all nice and even. You can always do it piece by piece, or you can do what I just did. Just mush it all together until you don't see any red on top. And make sure it's facing down. And we're gonna crank up that heat. And in the beginning you saw that I had an option for you to use bacon. If you use bacon grease, the bacon and bacon grease, you want to have to do what I'm doing right here. I added oil, and of course the steam and the oil, it became like a soup at the bottom. So we really want to make sure the meat is crispy. So I just wanted to make sure I take out all the juices so then it's nice and crisp when I cook the meat. I wanted, a little bit more brown. Now we're really frying up that meat. You want it nice and brown. And I have to turn down the heat. A little bit too hot. But yes, nice and brown. Look how nicely cooked that meat is. It's nice and brown, so I'm just gonna go ahead and put it in a separate bowl and put it to the side for now. You're gonna keep the leftover grease, and I'm gonna go ahead and add just a little bit more of the oil. We're adding our onions, and we're just gonna cook them up just a little bit, just halfway, before they start turning translucent. You're gonna add your tomato paste, slap it in there, and your garlic, and give it a nice little mixing. And once that's mixed in really well, we're gonna go ahead and add our flour and give another mix. Now that it's mixed, we can add our beef broth. And a final mix before we add the lovely Guinness. So you're gonna go ahead and measure 10 ounces. I didn't pour the Guinness in right into the glass. You should always tilt your glass when pouring it in just to avoid all that foam. But yeah, I ended up pouring the whole thing in the glass and just waited for it to settle. I drank the extra, ounce and a half and poured the rest in. And then we're gonna add some thyme or thyme, thyme, and some brown sugar, and the meat, and the celery and carrots, and the potatoes, and give that a good mix from the bottom to the top, scooping. And to top it off with the parsley. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and crank up the heat again. We want it to have a rapid boil. And once there's a rapid boil, you want to bring down the heat and let it simmer. And you cover it and let it cook. Okay, you can have it cooking anywhere between an hour to an hour and a half, your choice. And then I get started on my mashed potatoes. Fill up a pot of water. I started off with peeling and cleaning my potatoes, cutting them in decent chunks. You're going to need to add a whole stick of butter, cut it up, some milk, salt, pepper, and garlic powder. You boil the water, add the potatoes, wait about 20 minutes for it to cook. Check to see if the potatoes are tender, check with a fork. Good, and then I'm just using the steamer basket to drain out the potatoes. Then you add your butter. Make sure you give it a nice mash. Then we're gonna add the milk. I would have to say about 3/4 of a cup to a cup, depending on how smooth you want to make it. But yeah, just give it a nice mix. Then we're gonna add some salt. Use a generous amount and mix it well. And now some pepper. And now we're gonna add some garlic powder, about a little handful, and just sprinkle that in. Give another mix. Final taste, and it's done. Checking on the stew. You want to make sure that the potatoes are nice and tender. And we're done. This lovely meal was brought to you by Guinness. You can always just eat the stew, but I wanted like a shepherd's pie, so I layered it with mashed potatoes. Enjoy!